This will be number 3. It's Sunday, May the 3rd, 2026. The title of this have 3 titles, so to speak. We'll Come to You 3, so it's the 3rd version of... I think this is... I couldn't have brought this message, this series of messages, this understanding. I couldn't have done it 40 years ago. I don't know how many years ago. Maybe I couldn't even done it 20 years ago. It's taken all this time and all these personal encounters, and I've seen God and see how He works. And so with that, looking at, I'll say 80 years, I'll say 70 years, but I came to Christ as a young man. So I'll say 70 years. I was around 10 years old when I came to Christ at Corryville, Pennsylvania, a youth camp, and tossed a stick into the fire and gave my life to Him. That was a part of what went on at camp. Since then, I have tried to follow Him, and I've tried to do it in a significant way. I've tried to do it with my heart. Certainly have messed up almost daily. But I've had so many profound experiences with God that in part it's resulted in, and I pray in tongues a lot. And just understanding comes. So, as you know, I went to really around the week of when I turned 81, when I completed my 80th year and turned 81, began my 81st year. We chose to go up to the Ark Encounter, my second time there, and it was a profound thing. From the Ark, what we had planned, because we were in northern Kentucky, we went to eastern part, in a sense, directly east through a lot of back roads to about 2 hours away, and visited an Amish family, and I'll kind of say an old order Amish family. They have some newer nuances, but they're basically an old order Amish family that God connected us with many years ago. And it's a significant part. People, the Ark. I have so short-sold the Ark and the message of the Ark and the messages from the Ark. I have so personally sold it short that this will be the 3rd in the series of messages on things that have come to me, realizations that are bubbling inside of me in reference to life today and what's ahead of us and what we face and what the Ark encounter, and I mean by that the story of the Ark, Noah and the Ark, and God, and what it reveals about God, God's ways. And almost all of my life, I've looked at it as what God did. That's how I looked at the story of Noah and the Ark. This is what God did. Pretty impressive. This is what He did. Rather than included another level to that, not only is this the record of what He did and magnificent it was, it is how He does things. It's a significant catalog, so to speak, library, so to speak, illustration, of exactly how God does things. So, people and other living things. So I want to kind of focus on people and other living things. God as at work in your life. That's kind of the 3rd subtitle. God is at work in your life. The more you acknowledge that, the freer you will become. The more you realize that, the more at peace you can become. Just how much God is a part of your life, aware of your life, attentive. The ark speaks to that in such a profound way. So again, 1 Peter 3:21, in reference to this, there were some of the words in 1 Peter 3:21, which is a New Testament reference that clearly connects the ark, the people who were saved in the ark, and Jesus Christ. That water and Jesus Christ and the resurrection. It clearly, Peter, the Holy Spirit gave Peter, connecting them together. That it's not a pipe dream or some pastor's pipe dream. 1 Peter 3:21. And that water is a picture of baptism, which now saves you, not by removing dirt from your body, but as a response to God. I love those words. Those are new words to me this week. He was speaking of us being water baptized, but he was using a picture and illustration of passing through baptism, where in reality, the baptism that Noah, the total of the 8 people and all the animals that were on that ark, they passed through the watery judgment, so to speak. And in part, the magnitude of the amount of water kind of gives a picture of the magnitude of judgment. Just kind of looking at it, it's the magnitude of judgment. That's what, and ultimately this verse makes it crystal clear. It has meaning because it's related to Jesus. It's all about you because it's related to Jesus. Everything in your life that God is doing. There's an enemy, and I acknowledge that, and he's aggressive sometimes. He's real aggressive in trying to accomplish his purpose. So the magnitude of what the ark by itself is a story, a fabulous story of faith and steadiness and so on. But it's really a revelation in addition to a fabulous story and faith and a lot of work and terrible time period, terrible judgment and provision and God teaching. There is coming. It was about Jesus. It was picturing Jesus. And in a sense, the 40 days of rain coming from above, the disruption, the earthquakes, the violence, all of that, is there a physical picture that maybe can give a bit of an idea of the judgment that Jesus bore and the magnitude of the pressure that was on him? Yeah, the 40 days of the rain and the earthquakes and all the things that took place, the whole earth, the shape of the earth, the mountains. There was such dismantling of things. It's a picture. Well, that was 40 days long. Well, it's taking things like that to try and picture the fullness of what Jesus was willing to carry. And the thought came to me actually during the message last week. It's like the ark is like his body that we're in, that he's carrying us in himself into the judgment. He bore the judgment. He's carrying us, and his resurrection freed us, and our being water baptized is legitimate, and it has meaning. Your water baptism has meaning because of what Jesus did, because of his resurrection. It counts. And your lifetime, the things that you do that are related, that picture that God gives you, that picture the rule of God, Almighty God, Jesus. I mean, we're going to spend eternity getting a realization of the magnitude of what Jesus did. And the honor that the Father is giving to him will be giving to him through all eternity because of the magnitude of what he has done. To me, it was like he was under the boat, bearing the full weight of all of that watery judgment, tumultuous things. And they were in the ark, in essence being carried by him, and came out of the ark to newness of life and all of the wicked, the evil, that the earth was so filled with was all washed away, except what was on the inside of them. And that unfortunately surfaced pretty quickly. But these words, and that water is a picture of baptism. It's a picture in Christ. Jesus is the boat, is the ark, is the box. I think Jesus, in essence, was under it because he bore it directly. We were the ones inside, safe. All the animals were inside. He was the one who was bearing it, which now saves you. So Peter is addressing that and relating it to our being water baptized, which now saves you not by your water baptism doesn't remove dirt or from your body, but as it's a response to God. Peter, in the understanding that the Holy Spirit gave him on the time when he wrote this verse, but it's a response to God. Boy, those are important words. It is effective. It has meaning. Your water baptism, your life, the things that you do in honoring God, in saying yes to Him and following His commands, in carrying out His assignments, it's effective as it's God-focused, God-initiated. It's effective, but as a response to God from a clean, it is effective because of the reason it is, because of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. It's all about you, Jesus. You're the center, Jesus. Jesus, in reality, is the center of Noah's Ark. It's all about Him. Yes, it is about the approximately 100 years Noah and his family at least spent building that thing. Yes, it's about nearly the year of the flood and the ark and water on the earth and all of them. Yes, it is. But in reality, it's really God giving this a picture of incredible magnitude. The evil is so evil, it was so wicked that it had to be, God deemed it has to be destroyed. We're getting glimpses of the kinds of evil and wickedness and deceit and lying, and we're getting glimpses. I think there's lots of glimpses that we could get even more of things, the darker things that seem to be perking to the surface of what's really going on. Oh my goodness, but Jesus made it crystal clear, as it was in the day of Noah, so it's going to be when He returns again. The magnitude was of such, it's all about you, Jesus. It centers on you. And so to the degree that you are able to recognize that, and as you recognize it, it gives you an opportunity to more wholeheartedly be thankful and glorify God as God. The more you recognize, the more oblivious you are to what's really going on in life, that it's centering around Jesus. Sin is the problem. Jesus is the answer. It's the Father's way. It's the Father's enabling. That there is an enemy who's doing everything to destroy and besmirk and bring about as much wickedness and evil as he can. And there's an answer. There's a Redeemer. It's really bad. Well, what's the picture that God gave? The first really, really big picture. You could say when Adam and Eve were cast out of the garden, that's a big picture. But the ark, it's an incredible picture. I'm trying to make the ark bigger than, it's quite a story found in Genesis 6, 7, 8, and 9. I'm trying to remove it from being locked in that kind of prison, so to speak, and that's the significance of it. It fits in the whole story from there to there. It is such a revelation of what really the magnitude of what Jesus was going to do. This was looking forward ahead to it. And how God does things. It's effective. You're being water baptized as a follower of Jesus Christ, picturing, yeah, I entered that death, the death He died, and I enter His resurrection because He did it carrying my sin so that I didn't have to do it. So it's like I'm in the ark floating on what was going on. And that picture of water baptism of identification, it's effective. It has meaning. Why? Because of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. It has meaning. So here we go. He was to build it of gopher wood. The gopher wood existed. It was there. I don't know what kind of tools they had. They had to have tools. Build it of gopher wood. It exists. Your work, you work at resources. They are of God. The things you've been called to do, the things you've accomplished in life, you have abilities, you have enablings that you draw upon. What it says to me, looking at the ark as a teaching lab, a school to teach you about the ways of God. This is a real live 100-year-long example, but it teaches you way more. It teaches you of Jesus and what He did. Is the resources that you have. He knew what His calling is on you and gave you resources. Yes, there's an enemy that's has done everything he can to destroy it. But He gives you resources and enablings, personality, gifts, that maybe along in your journey in life you found, these abilities that I have, I'm glad I have these abilities. If you can see past some of the hurt and some of the things that have been unfortunate about your life, the things that you realize, man, there's several times in my life have been involved in what I consider big projects, and I was filled with, God, you made me. The resources you gave me, the talents, the abilities, this is perfect. So I needed enablings. You knew what enablings I needed. They knew, they drew upon. Build it out of gopher wood. Gopher wood, whatever it was, existed. You draw upon it. You draw upon the enablings. David Sweeney is working real hard learning sign language to communicate with the deaf. If he had the attitude, this I am developing because I am developing, and does not acknowledge in his heart, I'm not talking about he says the right thing outside when he comes to church so you hear the right thing. In his heart, when he's alone, when he's all by himself, this desire to do this enabling, this flexibility, this whatever, when you created me, you built into me the kinds of things that I would need. You're suggesting that God is really involved in our lives from beginning to end. Yes. Yes. Gopher wood. The second, two of each will come to you. Again, that phrase, will come to you. It will come to you. The animals. So I want to expound on that. Two of each will come to you. God does it. People, living things that come into your life. People that come into your life. What does the ark teach? They could build. I'm assuming there were trees. That really was of God, but you cannot notice that. Well, I'm so thankful for the things, the resources, the abilities that Faye has. Oh my goodness, I'm so thankful. I didn't pick her. I walked out the door of the college and I saw her across the way at the end of our freshman year, and I said, I heard myself think, not say out loud, that's the girl I'm going to marry. And I think I responded out loud, that's the girl I'm going to marry. I didn't pick her. God picked her. Oh, I'm so thankful. I didn't know I needed an administrator among many things. I had no idea. How did those animals get there? People, how did Faye get into my life? How did the animals get there? God sent them. You mean I'm to apply that understanding to my own life? Yes. The timing your children were born. Look to the ark. He was 500. We think he spent about 100 years building the boat. Well, his sons were born when he was 500, and the waters came when he was 600. That's the 100-year time period. And so at the beginning of that time period, are you suggesting that even the timing of certain things that people, children that come into our life, that God is directly involved? Yes. Yes. Where? The animals. I want you to build out of gopher wood. Okay, well, there's a whole forest of gopher wood there. A lot of gopher wood, big trees. That's going to be a lot of work. And I want you to put 2 of every animal, and the clean ones, 7, and the unclean ones, male and female. Huh? Every animal that exists in the world? However much of the world was known? How am I going to get them here? How am I going to keep the lions from eating me up? I don't know I know the kind of thoughts I would have thought. Where are they going to come from? God said they'll come to you. That meant he sent them. How did he send them? They needed 2 by 2. He sent them 2 by 2. He sent a mouse, field mice. He sent 2, a male and a female. Hamsters, sent 2, a male and a female. Chipmunks, 2, male and a female. Water buffaloes, 2, male and a female. Why did 2 come? Because God sent them. Genesis 7, of clean animals, of animals that are unclean. So of the clean animals, the unclean animals, of birds, and of everything that creeps on the ground. 2 by 2, they went into the ark to Noah. He didn't stand outside the ark. Okay, come on, line up. No pushing in line, so on. Now, I want the 2 birds together, the hummingbirds, you got to go in together. Now the 2 finches, now the 2 ravens, you got to go. No, you can't budge ahead of time. We're doing birds right at the moment. They didn't stand out there and do that. I think the scripture makes it clear. Noah and the other 7 went in, and the parade of animals began. The parade of animals, people, lives, is in your life. It goes on. The parade that God sends. 2 by 2, they went into the ark to Noah. So he was in there just receiving them. Oh, good. You go upstairs, elephants, you're downstairs, you're down the hall, you're big and heavy. You got to be downstairs. I think they directed traffic, but they were outside rounding them up. Okay, here we go. Acts 10:1. Is there an example? Can you show me that God picks and God lets you know that's not just a story then, that's how God works? Yes, glad you asked. Acts chapter 10, Cornelius and Peter. There was a certain man in Caesarea called Cornelius, a centurion of what was called the Italian regiment. Glad they were Italians. So here's Cornelius, and he had a heart toward God. He was a Gentile, a devout man, and one who feared God with all of his household, who gave alms generously to the people, and he prayed to God always. He was a very God-focused man. Not a Christian, not under the covenant, but he had his heart toward him, and God knew everything about him. And about the 9th hour of the day, that was the hour of prayer. That was 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That was the 3rd prayer time, the Jewish prayer time, time of significant prayer. The evening sacrifices were done at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the 9th hour. And so he probably was praying. It was the common time. about the 9th hour of the day, he saw clearly in a vision. Does God pick? Does he announce? How did those animals get there? God picked them. How did they come? They were moved there by God. What are all the ways available to God to move you, to move people? There's no end. He could send visions, angels, dreams. In a vision, he saw an angel of God coming in and saying to him, Cornelius. That'll catch your attention. And when he observed him, he was afraid, and he said, I can assume, okay, what do you want? What is it, Lord? That makes complete sense to me. So he said to him, the angel, your prayers and your alms have come up for a memorial before God. Wow! What you're doing down here, God knows all about. And actually, they're a memorial. They're kind of like a trophy up in heaven. They're important. They count. Now, send men to Joppa. Go down here. The animals came to him. You go down here to Joppa and send for Simon, whose surname is Peter. You're looking for a particular guy, God picks it. You're looking for a particular guy, his name is Simon, and he's got a surname, his surname is Peter. That's who you're looking for, and you're looking for him in the town of Joppa. It's kind of like, in that area of the world is where the gorillas are, and God, in his creatorship, calls upon, I don't know how it happened, I don't know if he sent angels for everyone, I don't know. Calls upon them, and the gorilla, a male and a female, they come together, and maybe they didn't like each other, but now all of a sudden they're friends, or they're not at war, and they see in front of them the lions, and boy, that's their feared enemy, but now all of a sudden they can line up and come 2 by 2, come behind the lion. How did that happen, God? How did it happen that Cornelius sent one of his angels, one of his men, because he was told by an angel, go down to Joppa, a nearby town, 17 miles away, something like that, and send for Simon, whose surname is Peter. He is lodging with Simon. He knows, God knows people you need, where they are, animals you need. Animals? That's what he filled the ark with, animals. Are you trying to suggest maybe my dog, my favorite dog, Ralph, that Ralph, God sent Ralph? Yes. Why? Because of the ark. What if you don't even like cats? And you mean God sometimes sends cats? Now, if there's some cat lover here, I've made you mad and you're about ready to leave because you love cats. Yeah, God sends cats. He is lodging with Simon, a tanner, whose house is by the sea. He knows exactly where you are and who you're with and who you're keeping company with and all your disguised names. He will tell you what you must do. Why didn't God have the angel tell him? He will tell you. Elaborate instructions. You are really significant in heaven. You're tall cotton. Because what you do, they're a memorial before God. You might think he's such tall cotton, he gets special messages from angels and so on. The angel told him who to go and find, and he is going to tell you what you need to know. It's no doubt. And if you follow the story of Peter in Acts chapter 9 before that, he's in a home because he raised in that town, raised a woman from the dead, and he's spending time in that. You can imagine he was pretty popular. And they were fixing a meal. He was up on the roof preparing for it, and God dropped down a sheet, and 3 times they had all kinds of animals, clean and unclean, eat. Well, I don't eat those things, Lord. I'm a good Jew. I don't eat those things. What I've cleaned. He prepared him. He prepared that. It's no different. It's the God who said, You're to build this thing, this boat, this box. You're to build it, and you're to build rooms. And in the rooms are going to be 2 of every kind of animal because you're going to keep them all alive. How am I going to get those animals? God. They came to him because of God. Well, the people that I need to interact with that become a part of my life, that help me become who I am or further me along, how come they came into my life then? God. And sometimes God will do it in such a magnitude, like this Bible story. Yeah, but that's in the Bible. Good, I'm glad you said that. The Detweiler family line. So here's Faye, the Detweiler family line. Back in the 1700s, 1734, 35-ish, the Amish in Europe were highly oppressed. And as best we have from the records, the Amish decided they picked 2 families. One was a Detweiler family, and the other, it's okay. And they said, would you go to the new North America, and would you see if that's a favorable area for other Amish families to come to? And what time in history are you talking about? 1735, 34, 35-ish, according to the records that we have. And 2 families, one the Detweiler family. Faye, what was his first name? Melchior Detweiler. And he had 5 children, and one was named Christian and one was named Rudolph. And Christian followed the Amish, and Rudolph followed the Mennonite tradition. And they went to not Philadelphia, but Pennsylvania, the lower part of Pennsylvania, just kind of above, near Hershey, Pennsylvania, is where they settled. And though they had a rough time based on their records, they made it and so on. And they were the beginning of, there's a huge Amish population. Well, Rudolph Detweiler married, and he had children, they had children, they had children, they had children. Some of those children went up to Canada, they had children, and so on. And there was a Detweiler who met a Smith, and they married and moved to Michigan. And that Detweiler woman and Smith husband married, and they had 13 children. One of them's name was Bill Smith, William Smith. So he was a blood relative of the Detweilers, and so he was a blood relative of the Detweiler family, the first Amish family that came to the... Does God know where you are and who you are and your relatives? And if he wants to bring it up, if God wants to impress upon you, I know everything about you, because he wants your heart struck. So Faye and her relatives and cousins, they would talk about, because they knew that Grandma, that Bill Smith, who came here for a while before he passed on, Bill Smith, that, and I went up not long after we were married, and met her, or her grandmother, a Detweiler, married a Smith, and they had 13 kids. So they would talk about, they would realize that their background was from was Mennonite, but it was one of 2 Amish brothers who of the very first Amish family that moved to the United States. I know your roots. I know your generational lines. I know everything about it. So on one of our trips, we went somewhere. Faye said, why don't we go and visit the old Detweiler home that's in Lower Pennsylvania and see it, because I understand that it's still there. So we went and took pictures of it. I just don't know how to get the pictures up, or I would show them to you. We went and, but wow, that was something. The Detweiler home, it was being restored. They came in, as I said, 1734-ish, 35-ish. that's where they went and gave a good report, and lots and lots of Amish. So one day, Faye goes to our Walmart on Clinton Highway, and she walks in the door approximately like this, and she sees an old order Amish couple. How do you know that? Because of how they're dressed, because of how their hair is, because of the clothes they have on. You just know, well, they're Amish. Ooh, I'd like to talk to them because she's kind of keyed up Amish-wise because of the recent things and family things and that were said in reunions and so on. And she says, oh, I'd love to talk to them because they're Amish, and she feels her Amish roots. Is God aware? And things like that can be important to you. So, but they were talking, or some couple was talking to them, oh, I don't know if she verbalized a prayer. God, I'd like to talk to that couple. And sure enough, as she was walking around in Walmart, Clinton Highway, walking around in Walmart, she turned the corner, and there they were. Wow. She said something, I think if she had to think all over again, she'd, wow, are you Amish? Of course they were Amish. They, why were we dressed? They said yes. Oh, I don't know how the conversation flowed, but I've got Amish in my background, and oh my goodness, I like you. She doesn't say that, I don't think. I love you. I love who you are. I don't think she said all those things. And somewhere in the conversation, she says, and I come out of the Detweiler line, and the Detweiler line is the original Amish line in the United States. And they just keep talking. They're not real open. They're not real quick. They're not a blabbermouth. I'm way more of a blabbermouth. They aren't blabbermouth type people. And eventually, the husband looks at her and says, while they're still in Walmart, I don't think he said, huh, but I'm going to say, he said, huh, my wife was a Detweiler before. You're kidding, they said. The first ever Amish couple I see in Walmart is a Detweiler blood relative. Oh my goodness! Why are you here? Well, we live in Sunbright, Tennessee. It's about an hour and a half, 2 hours. And we wanted to do Christmas shopping. We got, I think, 11 kids at that point in time. We got 11 kids, and he was coming, our neighbor was coming up. I think we let him do some of his cattle on our, and he gives us rides on occasion. They have a horse and carriage. They don't have a car or a truck or a pickup or a Ford. And so we rode up here, and we're doing some Christmas shopping, and we chose this Walmart. He chose this one to come to, and that's why we're here. They were there because Faye was going to be there. That's why they were at that Walmart. Why? Because it was the plan of God. So they exchanged names and so on, and they got an address, or they gave the name of the company they have in Sunbright, Tennessee at that time. And so Faye looked it up, and she had an address. So she just, after a week or two, she just sends a note or a card. It was so nice to meet you, and so on. And would love to maybe have a meal together, because they were relatives. They understood we're some kind of relative, possibly. We've come out of the Detweiler. There's only one Detweiler line. So we have to, we kind of got to be related. Two are going to come to you, male and female. How did God brought them? People, God brings them. Boy, it was so good that I met blah, 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 blah. So much has happened good in my life. Why did you meet that person? God. Well, how do you know that? Because he brought the animals, people, living things. Trees, build out of trees. Where'd the trees come from? God. You mean God wants us to live God conscious all the time? Yes. Yes. So in a week or two, she gets a phone call from, their name was Miller. His name, he was a Miller that married, she was a Detweiler, married a Miller. And Andy Miller, she gets a phone call. Her phone, I don't know how all that worked, but it comes up, Andy Miller. Andy Miller, he's an old order Amish. They don't have phones. Well, he had special dispensation because he had a business and he had to have a phone because he had to have contacts. And so the smaller groups, and there are many of them around the country, are less prone to be as full-bore old order as the big groups, hundreds of Amish families, like in Pennsylvania and Ohio, so on. They're full-bore. And so they're full-bore old order Amish, but they've got a phone. And hey, yeah, we'd love to. Well, good, we can meet somewhere. Well, there's a problem. We don't have a car. Oh, that's right. We'll drive there. We'll pick you up. We'll take you to a restaurant. And we did. Several weeks later, we drove up to Sunbright, Tennessee. We had a meal with them, met their family. Incredible story, incredible story. And then we just kind of tracked with them, Faye wrote correspondence because God connected them together. And I guess they had grace to let us into their lives, even though we're English. They called us English. That's what Amish people call non-Amish people. They're English or white. They're white people, regardless of our skin color or English. And they moved several times. It's not uncharacteristic. They moved multiple times. Each time they moved, we would find a way to go up and visit them in their new home, and so on. And one of Faye's cousins up in Michigan finds out that there is a genealogical book of the Detweilers, because it's a huge family. They're hugely significant. It's a Detweiler book. It's got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people in it. And she tells Faye about it, and Faye says, huh, and she makes plans for her cousin, Michigan, Smith-based, to come, and she said, Faye said, wouldn't it be something if I could get Andy and Susie Miller to come? They're just in Sunbright, not that far away. I'm gonna send them a note or call them. I'm gonna tell them this, would they like to come? So she called them, and we're gonna have lunch at our house, and we're gonna look at a Detweiler genealogy book, and would you like to come? And they said yes. So we drove up to Sunbright, picked them up, brought them back to Knoxville. We had lunch, and then, okay, now let's look at the book. So we don't really understand the book. They understand the book, the Detweiler genealogy. They understand the book, and about halfway through the meeting in the afternoon, she says, that is my grandfather. Oh my goodness. Everybody's looking around. We are relatives. And I just saw an Amish couple. Is God involved in people? Absolutely. Now, I find it honest to say that was God. Nah, that was just coincidence. That was random. Really? I think that takes more faith. I think there's one who's orchestrating this. Well, I don't know if I want to think that way or live that way, because then I'm kind of responsible. Right. Right. But he's good. He's not evil. Fullness of life. Make it through the judgment. That's what Jesus is all about. So you can make it through the judgment. You don't have to spend eternity in judgment. You can be with him in eternity. God himself offered himself to redeem us. It's the message of the gospel. It's pictured in Noah's Ark encounter. God's involved in people, the animals. They will come to you. How am I going to meet the people I need to meet? Will come to you. I'm living a story right now. 2 years ago, we permitted a group, City Quake, to come and put on a revival teaching time here at the church. Faye and I happened to be on vacation at that time, planned it a year in advance, so we were down there, and there was a man who walked in the building, Ken Fincham. He walked in the building, looked up, saw the flags, and he was stunned. He couldn't believe it. And he somehow said, I belong here. I belong here. He said, one look at the flags. He asked all kinds of questions of Cindy that week. I wasn't around. And then I did a follow-up of City Quake a couple of weeks later for 8 weeks. He came to everyone. Cindy warned me, you better be careful about a guy named Ken Fincham, because he's got lots of questions about New Covenant, the building, and so on, the flags, and so on. Okay. I should have known to say, he's of God, he's one of the 2x2s, God sent him. It'll be interesting to develop what this leads to. So 9 months go by. He's attending. That was in August. So 9 months go by. We're in April of that year, a year ago. We're in April, and I'd learned, I'm being facetious, Ken, you know almost everybody in the world. It's not true, but he knows a lot of people, and people are important. He keeps a book with them, names or so on. And the thought occurred to me, GiftQuest is something I've spent an immense amount of time on 40 years ago and wrote and just poured myself into it, but it died. Why did it die? How did it die? Because it was written in DOS. And DOS doesn't even exist. Well, it does. It's at the heart of Windows, even Windows 11. You just don't know it. But you don't write in DOS anymore, and Len Sisson, who wrote it, just wasn't available. It died. The Windows operating system kept changing and changing and changing, and it was gone. And one day, 9 months after I met Ken, 9 months after I met Ken, the thought occurs to me, ask him if he knows anybody who programs on the web who might be willing to rewrite all of GiftQuest and all that meant for free, because we don't have any money. Quality, high quality, that Len approves of, agrees with. Do you know anybody? Well, actually I do. I know 2 people. One guy he told me about who lived in where he lived, and it was clear, that's not going to work, but I know a guy by the name of Nick Hadley, and I go every Tuesday. He has a prayer group. He has a prayer group for wounded, injured men, and he prays over them. He wants to establish a house of prayer, and he loves Russia. He loves Russia? Yeah, he knows all about Russia. Really? Well, take him a GiftQuest and ask him if he'll take it. So I had him, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks went by before Ken gave it to him for one reason or another. He gave it to Nick. Nick took it, and Nick was wowed by it. He said, I want to talk to that guy, Russ Porcella. So we met in the back of the church. He started telling me about the prophetic things that happened in his life when he was getting that recovery center in Bearden downtown that he does every Tuesday night that Ken Fincham's been a part of. It just came to me as he was explaining, oh, this is what that means. God opened his eyes that for 2 weeks he was able to look at anybody, and he knew what was in their life and what was wrong with them and what help they needed. Anybody, he said, I don't care who it was. I looked at him and I knew this. And then it left. And I explained, okay, God was letting you know what came to me. God was letting you, this was to Nick standing in the back of the church. God was letting you know that he knows all that information about everybody, and he'll unload it as is appropriate and for you. But he wanted you to be so sure that he knew that about everybody. He gave you a 2-week window which you could just look at anybody and you knew what their needs were in their life. It made sense to him. He's been working with us in GiftQuest for a year. It's out there. It's available on the web. We're working really hard. We've made it global. It's now global. Anybody in the world who can write and speak English at the moment can take it. It's amazing. Where did it come from? Well, it came through Ken Fincham. But it came from God. That was the pathway that God used. Will come to you. Where are the animals going to come from? They will come to you. Where are the people that I need in my life to fulfill the calling of God? Will come to you. Sometimes He'll do a Detweiler just to convince you, I know everything about you and your family line, and I can connect you. Being connected is very important to Faye, so that was something that would be very important. I discovered you're my 9th cousin twice removed. I have no idea what that means, but that's what Susie Miller is. She's a 9th cousin twice removed. They sat and counted that when they had the Detweiler book. It was unbelievable. God did it. God knows. What does the ark teach? God knows everything. He knows where all the animals are, living things. He knows where they all are. He knows how to beckon them. He knows how to get them to move. He knows how to come at the right time. He knows how to say, okay, mind your manners, go in. Okay, lions, hold it. Cool it. Walk together side by side at peace as you walk in the ark. Don't eat Noah and his family. Let him direct you to... And there's a harvest. God's called us to be involved in the harvest. We're waiting for a bell to move. And we're waiting for such a significant portion of the globe are Orthodox. And it just seems it's a brilliant possibility that there's a promised resurrection of one of the most famous Orthodox priests of all time, of any nation, who said he was going to resurrect from the dead, and the great end-time revival was going to be launched because of his resurrection, and it was going to spark the Orthodox portion of the world. Of course, that causes problems with evangelicals, which we are. That means Bible believing. That causes problems. They're Orthodox, they just... I know. Where are they going to come from? God. How do you know that? The ark. The experience. Peter, the Bible. So many stories in the Bible. Our own lives. I'm so glad I went to the ark encounter. See how this